it's not about which is good, which is bad. It's just two very different worlds. So when you go from here to there and suddenly you're like, oh, I'm supposed to be this way here. I'm supposed to do these things here. So it's just a difference in terms of the world. But I think a lot of what we are today is very its core lies in the fact that we are from Bangalore and we got to do what we got to do. And actually, I'd like to say here that I was not part of competitions at all growing up. But I think just in my class, even with just my teacher, I saw so many new themes being explored. Like I remember her doing this 15, 20 years ago. I remember her with Kittu Rani Chennamma being part of it. Since you mentioned Navi Chechi, I remember Navi Chechi being the Kittu Rani and like we'd all stand behind it with the fighters and putting flowers for her and like I mean I enjoyed doing all that. I remember her doing a Bengali poem into a full-fledged production with Kirti doing the main lead and Sanjay sir doing the lead. So there were so many things that she did which today I realize was actually not that time and it was already being done quite a lot. And I have to say, I mean, your guru is still doing that. Padmini auntie is still. I remember some of the dancers who were there in Padmini auntie's Nauka Charitam, which she premiered. Their experiences are so. I don't know how to put it. It's beautifully absurd because you don't expect a dancer, a senior dancer, going so out of the zone and trying so many beautiful new things. It's so refreshing to watch, and I think a lot of our courage comes from there because you see seniors doing those things. I mean, I've seen ma'am doing that grow up. I've seen Padmini aunty's done that growing up all through as well.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And in fact, I think that's like really, for me, Padmini Ravi aunty is like that picture of what I call like, fearless, just like, I mean, almost to the point of I feel like, sometimes she's just like crazily in love with her ideas, which was so wonderful. And the word that you used, I think, is absolutely perfect to call it absurd, like recounting our, sort of experiences with her. And like you said, really, I don't think even I understood the magnitude of, that exposure and that sort of, because that was norm, right? For me, like growing up, okay, that was what it was supposed to be. This is how it is done kind of thing. And I think as a teacher also, like, I mean, these are like a few things that I kind of want to share about her is as a teacher, she was once again, like in all which ways, in her avatar as a teacher as well, she was like a friend, if I can call it that.
Absolutely. I can so connect to that.
Yeah. While we maintained in a very, I mean, I think it's, without it being explicit, everything was definitely followed. The decorum in a classroom is very, very clear, right? You completely acknowledged her position as, a teacher. But like outside of that classroom, she could just transform into everything else.
I think nothing happened with fear. Like the whatever happened in classrooms didn't happen with the fear of doing things. It was always because you loved her so much and you like she was the friend who.
Absolutely. And for me, I was probably one of like the youngest in her class at that point of time. Because even when I joined her, she had kind of downsized her class, and I was like the youngest over there. And I received no different treatment from the older ones at all. And this sort of memory of observing her process of choreography, right, which I think was a very, very, like there are so many things that keep coming back to my mind today when, the little teaching I do, but when I teach, just to be that, you understand what a grand impact a teacher has on you, right? A teacher of dance can have on you. And I felt there was so much involved there, right? She would just let us directly into her creative process. And watching Padmini aunty choreograph was like the most interesting thing ever because she would sit on her couch in front and she would always close her eyes when she was visualizing something. And sometimes it would just go into like minutes, right? You're just standing in front of her and she's just like listening to the song or in silence completely has her like eyes closed. And she would open her eyes and she would come up with something seemingly very bizarre. It would be like, right leg here, left leg there, right hand over here, and you're thinking, this as many limbs that I have. How can I really place it like that? But I think for me, this was so essential in formulating, right, your mind and your body, preparing it for, what art truly is. I mean, art cannot be boxed, right? It doesn't start from a set of, okay, here are the rules and that's it. Like, the job is done. But how much can you sort of season those rules while you are exploring your own boundaries? And I think that was like a very, very
and for me, actually, talking about my Padmini here and talking about Padmini Ramachandran, for me, there's, like you said, especially when you get to teaching, there are so many things that you take off from your teacher. I think for ma'am, one of the biggest things that she showed all of us is that choreography has to be tailor-made. That you have to work on the child's strength. That each of us, so my Varnam would be 45 minutes, but it would be Abhinaya heavy because she knows that I'm good at it. So use your child, the strength of the child, use what the child. So I think it also helped that her memory was not great. And she would forget what she taught the earlier person. So then she'd be like, oh, forget that. We'll just do this thing over again and we'll do a brand new thing. But she made it a point that if somebody has a strength, that will be used and that has to come out. That was one. And of course, the fact that she completely went out of, at that point of time, to do themes that were completely out of the box for that time. And I think this might be something very silly, but it's something that made a lot of sense, makes a lot of sense to me now. So ma'am was someone who didn't care about outward appearances, like what she was wearing or what. So she used to, like, if she calls you for class at 7 in the morning, she would be sitting there in a nightie. And you're not like, I was used to that. I was very, very used to that. For us, it was normal because what you're wearing didn't matter. It was what followed. That she would teach you for the next 3 hours and then teach you like do everything that you are good at and make you the dancer that you are. But her, it didn't make a difference that she was in a nightie or like her hair was all around and she would be just sitting with a cup of coffee or tea, and it didn't matter. And I think that's one more thing that kind of suddenly takes you back when you go out into the world. And you realize, okay, you're supposed to be a certain way. Because I've grown up seeing ma'am like that. We'd be like, ma'am, please pin the pallu properly, or please. She just like it doesn't matter. Like the dance is what is going to do the talking. So I think that's one more thing that I learned from ma'am, which I think is very, very important for me. I understand that it doesn't matter how, like, the outward appearance ultimately, and that's more of a life lesson than actually, and that's a fact. Like, you learn so much of your life lessons also from your teachers. So I think that was one lovely thing that I learned from her as well.
I think that's a very salient point you made, right? Because it's possible. I've definitely sort of grappled with this idea through my growing years. And I'm sure there are younger people who also, constantly ask this question because, where do you as a dancer kind of shut off or end that image that you have as a dancer? Where is the boundary between that and sort of you as a person, like you're saying? And I think, I'd like to actually hear, you share about that and what you feel really. Because is it something that we carry around with us even outside of the stage, outside of the green room, wherever we are seen in public? Or, what is it? Like, where does that space sort of begin and end? Because I think that's also very, a part of what you just said, right? In terms of what you have.
I think right now it's very blurry also because of social media. Because on social media, you're not necessarily putting up only dance stuff. You're putting up your private stuff. You're putting up like pictures of your holidaying and pictures of your and in that you're not necessarily dressed like a dancer or behaving like a if there is something like that, dressed like a dancer or
that's my question actually. Is there something as appearing like a dancer? That's the question.
See, I like I'm saying it again. It's not good or bad, but I think that's something that I realized when I went to Chennai more than anything. Because in Bangalore, you can walk into a performance to watch a performance in whatever you're wearing, and nobody's going to, there is no repercussion. You're just going to watch a show. But I think in Chennai, it's an unsaid rule that you go in a sari and jhumkas and bindi and I honestly don't mind that because I love my saris, as you can see. I love my saris, so I don't mind. But I think the problem comes in when, for example, if you're coming from a station or you're coming from the airport, and then you're wondering if I should go there because I'm not dressed in a sari, or is it more important for you to watch that show? And I think that's where it becomes problematic, where you're like, shit, I'm not dressed to watch it. Because there is no dressing to watch it, you're just going to go watch it. So I think that's where that boundary gets a little difficult to handle, especially for youngsters, because then you have to follow a certain dress code. And I understand it's not, if you love it, if you love dressing up, it's not a problem at all. But I think it becomes a problem when someone else who necessarily doesn't want to wear a sari and you see them and then you're like, oh my god, how is she here in jeans? But then she's here just to watch. So I think that's where it gets a little difficult in terms of like you should let those people be. If they want to come in a jeans, it's fine. They're just watching a performance. It's not going to make a big difference to the dancer, not going to make any difference to the dancer. But if there is a person in the audience missing just because they couldn't dress for the occasion, then it'll make a difference to the dancer.
But Shruti, I feel it also much because I mean, dressing is just like a small part of the deal, right?
Yeah.
Right, like you said, and ultimately, if you want to sort of fit in and feel a part of that sort of environment, so be it. It doesn't really change who you are. But I think this idea of like a dancer's image that we grow into is also the things we say, the way we carry ourselves, the opinions we have sometimes also, which I feel is because that's another thing. This was something for me that, I sort of had to find that balance between. Because I have so many senior dancers that we so that it's very easy to start wanting to be like that. It's like you want to wear whatever. I think this is natural. But once again, back to your teachers and the kind of impact they have on you. Because for me, I think it's not, of course, Padmini auntie, you know her, she had like her bob cut, haircut. So there was nothing about her that really fit into any image whatsoever. But even somebody like Priya auntie, right, who's extremely open to conversation, open to opinions, and compels you to have an opinion of your own, which I think is so important.
Absolutely.
Because unless you stoke that, right, it may or may not really come out of a student, right? It's like a big learning for me because that space can be open, but it can also be a space which compels you out of comfort zone, compels you to ask questions and say, why do you want to do this? Or why do you want it this way and not that way, right?
Yeah.
Just an answer as good as, okay, I saw somebody doing this and I loved it, cannot be good enough. And, that sort of learning to own it, really kind of, I think, analyze, think about why does it make a difference to you, and to own it finally before you actually go out and do it is also a space which is so interesting because these things ultimately are not about being that dancer with great arramendi and great technique.
Right, absolutely. And I think also the image is very unsaid. And I think a lot of it is made up in a lot of people's minds and it gets passed on. So if you think that, in a certain place, they don't encourage you to ask questions or you're not, because coming from a place like we do, we are asked to ask questions. We're encouraged to ask questions. But then certain places you're told, no, don't ask. Just listen to what they're saying and do what they're saying. But then you never know that individual person you go ask, they will answer. They will entertain you. So I think a lot of the things that we assume about the industry is also in our heads. If you like you spoke about Priyaka, and I'm sure a lot of the others like that. If you sit an hour with Leela Ka or Braga Ka or any of them, they're all going to agree with a lot of things that you do, and they're very open to discussing and debating and things like that. I'm just not sure where the feeling comes from. You understand that feeling? There's one feeling of, okay, I'm being forced to be a certain way. Yeah. If I look at individuals, I don't think there's any individual saying that. But I think somewhere along the way, there were these unwritten, unsaid things that came in, including the dressing and including everything else. It's a very unwritten, unsaid kind of a thing that came in. I mean, I'm not sure how many people will actually go say, why are you wearing this today? Or why couldn't you just come in a sari? I don't think many people will. But then I think we've all assumed over years, because we see everybody in the same kind of attire, or we see certain things being repeated, so we think that is. So I feel like if we had like an open discussion with a lot of the seniors, it would make a lot of sense to us as well in terms of what we're talking about. Because I think as Bangalore dancers, for us, that change shift is huge. In every sense, not just dressing, in terms of content, in terms of talking, in terms of how you react when you see people, a lot of the things. So the shift is huge. So, but I don't know if a lot of that shift is made in the mind. Like it just gets passed on. Oh, you're going there, just be careful about this. But I'm not sure.
Also, I feel like, like you're saying, there are a lot of unsaid things that build a certain opinion or a way or a behavior in a community. But sometimes it's also very important to come out and state it and shatter that, right? Things that
Absolutely,
are not important.
Yeah.
Because I think it like put so many people's minds at ease, saying, wait, what is ultimately important? Because see, that line, I feel, even when we talk about asking questions and, you know, sort of being able to ask a question, it's a very, I feel it's a fine line which you need to learn very early on. There's a difference between asking to know and questioning, right? And these are two different things. And as a student, like, you know, one of the things that has been most important to me is that when you go to any class, like it doesn't matter what class, it doesn't have to be dance, right? But if you go to learn something from someone, you have to go as an open vessel.
Absolutely.
If you go with assumptions already that I know this, but you know, it's like I am good in Abhinaya, so I only want to learn Nritta. Or my Aramandi is good, my Natyaramam is not so good. What happens then is, I mean, which is great to have a self-evaluation, but you are then walking in with a part of your mind sort of closed, right? And it becomes, where do you have the space to absorb? And I think for the person, which is one of the great parts of this learning teaching tradition that we, you know, I think almost inadvertently become a part of, right? Because growing up, honestly, I've never overweighed these terms like Guru Sishya, right? I mean, I've never really thought deeply about it and said, okay, what does this mean to me? You know, they were words. But you do realize it's so valuable. The difference that I feel from others, say my peers who have, you know, we don't get that education in school or college. I mean, that attitude, not the education, that's the wrong thing. But, you know, that way of looking at something and a learning that is based so much on a relationship, right? And a long-term, hard-earned relationship that you sort of develop, you know, with a mind whom you have great admiration for. And it comes with all these very beautiful things that it teaches you about how to learn itself. Right? And so, which is why, again, none of these teachers would ever discourage you from a question, but they will, you know, show you that, like, it depends on where the source of that question is, right? Is it coming out of suspicion, or is it coming out of wanting to understand so you can absorb better? So I think that's like a very interesting thing also to understand in that process of having your own mind.
Absolutely. I think another thing that I wanted to ask you is, because we've had such different journeys in terms of dancing. You've been a very active part of the competition, this thing, and I've not at all. I think I've gone for one Tamil Sangam competition and got a consolation prize. That's about it. And I've never gone for anything after that. So I think it'll be fun to, you know, explore the kind of things that you've learned through competitions, and the kind of things that, like, I saw in competitions. For me personally, I'm glad that my teacher was also someone who understood my temperament. I don't think I could have survived competitions. My temperament was not not because I wanted to win, but then it was a continuous process where, you know, one competition gets over and then you go to the next one and next one and next one, and then you kind of develop this thing. I don't think I could have handled that at that age. And I fear that if it was forced upon me, I wouldn't have had the liking for the art form that I have today. It would have become stressful for me, and I think that's a very individual thing. It's about my temperament. One more thing is that as far as I have seen, um, everybody who's been extremely there in the competition field has one parent who's always there, who's always behind that whole thing of, and at that point of time, we didn't have online applications. So you had to go apply, you had to do all these things and take people physically there and do that. And then everything was about spending that much time. And I had both my parents working. I'm sure that if I showed keen interest on this, they would have somewhere squeezed in time to do that. I'm 100% sure. But I could see how much they struggled to even just pick up and get me back from dance class itself was a huge thing that was happening, especially because as part of ma'am's group shows, we had a team called Natyapriya, so as part of Natyapriya. So rehearsals and classes and all that used to already take up a lot of time. And for them to pick up and drop from that itself was a lot for them. So I couldn't have expected them to do more of, doing this. So I feel like you always also need to have that one person who's constantly behind doing those things for you. So that these are things that I have noticed, but I do feel that if I had gone to competitions, it would have given me a lot otherwise also. And I would like you to talk about what it gives, but my children go for competitions today and I'm glad they do. I know how much they learn, but I don't think I was made for it in general. Like that is my...
Yeah. No, absolutely. I completely agree with you that, you also have to align your mind and your personality to what the kind of things that you choose to do in your life, right? For me, like I told you, I was honestly very, very lost in my own world, I think, as a child. But when, like the things that the competitions, I loved it. I loved going for the competitions. But the things that it taught me to do very actively, and I liked that, is, getting over your nerves. I mean, I must have started competition when I was about, I think, 9 years old or something like that. So that's way too young for you to kind of go out there, do a solo piece, right? And at that age, they used to give you 5 minutes for the competition.
Yeah.
5 minutes is a lot of time dancing on stage on your own, actually, when you think about it. So the sort of taking that seriously, right? And no negotiations in that 5 minutes, and you have to give it your best. So I think one was definitely doing a lot of that meant this, you become comfortable with this stage. You understand, what it means to, what happens when you take practice onto stage. Because this is something I know that, all of our teachers tell us, you have to give 150% in the rehearsal, 200% in the rehearsal, maybe then 80% will come out on stage. You understand these things quite early on, and it kind of becomes very bite-sized lessons. I think that was one of the very important things. How to manage strange situations, right? Not being faced by audience moving here and there. Suddenly you hear a scream. Suddenly your CD will, not even CD, those days it was tapes. Your tape will stop playing. What do you do there? So I think so many of these little things which you have no other way of teaching, I think, a young kid, these kind of things. And I feel one of the most wonderful things that it did for me was learning to analyze myself. And I think that's been such a strong part of, such an important part. Like for me, even today when I walk out of a performance, yes, you have feedback. Yes, people say great things, bad things, everything. But do you have a very clear understanding of what did you hit, what did you miss? Where were you in the zone? And I think I really learned to do that when I was about 9 or 10 years old, because one nice thing is I was there not to win the competition. That was not the point. It's going there to do my best in a very, very honest way, right? But even sometimes, even if I won the prize in that competition, I would be like, no, this was not, I didn't do it that well today. And I think just having that attitude where you're answerable to dance, no? Ultimately, you're answerable to what you do, the art form that you're practicing. And
Absolutely.
if 100 people came and told me, oh, it was so nice, it was so amazing, you didn't do your Aramandi at 100%, so that remains, right? It doesn't change how you feel about it. So I think it's so many of these qualities which I think you can't learn inside a classroom necessarily, and eventually we all sort of graduate to learning it while we start performing or do longer performances. But I think it just set me up for those longer performances, so I didn't have to go through those or kind of overcome those basic
I think
obstacles.
that's such a lovely statement that you're answerable to dance.
Yeah.
I think that's a beautiful statement, and I think for me that was maybe the past 5-10 years, and I think that's what we were trying to say, that there is no formula, there is no one way to reach a space where you will understand your dance. And I think this also, when people ask about the formula, I think it's also important to understand that it depends on what your definition of success is. What your what do you think? Is it getting to a certain stage, or is it doing a certain item, or is it going to a certain guru? It depends on what your definition is. And for me, I think personally, it's just a space where you're dancing and you're enjoying your dance so much that you just finish it and you're just feeling happy, and there's nothing else. Nobody's watched you dance. Nobody's watched your rehearsal, but you're just feeling so happy about the entire process that it makes your day. And I think that is success for me. It's not about the stages that you do, or it's not. And I know we both have a long way to go. That's always going to be there for everybody, every dancer. We'll all have long ways to go. But I think for everyone who asks for, how do I go about it? Because this is a question that comes very often. I want to take it up professionally, or I want to be successful in the field. How? And this is something that I want to tell today. I don't know, because I think it's different for each person. I think it's a very individual journey, and it depends on your temperament. It depends on your circumstances. It depends on everything apart from the dance. Yes. Dance is obviously the main aspect, but it depends on so many things that hover around it. Yeah. Okay, I know you guys have been asking a lot of questions. Shall we take the questions, Apurva?
Yeah, sure, let's.
Yeah, there's been a lot of questions. Okay, I'll take from down. Have you dealt with insecurities about your appearance? If so, how? I think for me,
about what?
Appearance. Yeah, I think for me personally, there's been just one insecurity, which was about height. I think when I decided to take it seriously and I looked around, almost every person that I saw was tall and had a certain figure. So at that point, I was just like,
you shouldn't be talking at all. You're talking to a shorter dancer here. Okay,
so at that, you were not in Bangalore, unfortunately. That's what I'm saying. You left. Why did you? I wouldn't have felt that way. But I think it's all my mind. It's not to do with the industry, or it's not to do with the fraternity. It's nothing to do with any of them. It's my mind, because I was looking around. I was watching certain people who happened to be tall and who happened to have a certain figure. So I think that was something that always stayed in my mind, that I need to have. And then what changed me was I went to watch Bragaka perform. And there is a place where she turns into Anjaneya. And I went, if a person who's this much can convince me that she became Anjaneya, then what am I thinking about? So I think each of our insecurities has a way for us to figure out a way out of it, out of that insecurity. Have you had any?
No, not really. I don't think I've growing up definitely.
I love that you're in your bubble. It's brilliant. It works so well.
What happens is, I think with social media now, you tend to ask questions. That's definitely a question in my mind, and I would, state that out loud. Because what happens is, you believe that dance is about the dance, right? And so many people, like you absolutely said, the dancer's job is not to make the audience see them and their physique and their beauty, but to make the audience see so much beyond that, right? So many characters through you, so much beauty or not through you, through that, whatever physique that you may hold. So it's about really going beyond the physique. But what happens is now with the sort of onslaught of social media, a great photograph means a lot, right? And so that's when you kind of, I honestly find myself in a little bit of gray area now in terms of just trying to understand or retune my mind to what is happening, and in terms of how art is received. Because even, with videos as well, I feel, with dance films, it's such an interaction of the camera with the
Absolutely.
right?
I agree.
So it's actually the degree of the dance is lesser as much as it is about finding that photogenic moment, it's finding that visual that appeals. So what concerns me now, I think it's not about an insecurity, but definitely I am beginning to be concerned about, okay, how is my audience evolving, right? Because if that's becoming important to the audience, then what is my what should be my